research connects two activities: generating new knowledge, like conducting an experiment and recording the results, and using prior knowledge, building off of the previous work of others. Those previous works are called sources, and they can be primary or secondary. In this video, we'll learn more about the difference between primary and secondary sources. A primary source is an original work which comes directly from the time period or event being researched. A secondary source is a work from an author who used the original works of others and presented it as part of a larger argument. Let's look at an example. Imagine a student is researching the marriage equality movement in the United States, narrowing their scope to the early 2000s. What sources would provide first-hand accounts of what it was like to operate in that movement at that time? The student might collect newspaper and magazine articles from that period, like reporting on Nevada's state constitutional ban on same-sex marriage. They might search for photographs of protest flyers and audio or transcripts of protest speeches. They might gather congressional testimony and legal documents. Even web pages can be first-hand evidence. The student might look for preserved web pages of organizations working on behalf of or against marriage equality. All of these would be examples of primary sources. They all help to form a picture of this time, using works from within the era itself. But that's not all the student might use to form a picture. Many other scholars have already done analyses of marriage equality efforts in the early 2000s, and those scholars might have had access to different archives, different news coverage, different sets of correspondence. Those scholars compiled what they learned and wrote about it through their interpretive lens, often in the form of scholarly journal articles, books, or documentaries. If our imaginary student incorporated the findings of these works as well, they would be using secondary sources. And if our student turns their own work into a paper, or a book chapter, or a blog entry, that work too would be a secondary source. It's important to understand that it's not the age of something that makes it primary or secondary. Just because something is old doesn't make it a primary source. And it isn't the type of source that's the deciding factor either. In our marriage equality example, we discussed using newspaper articles as primary sources. But if our student had found a newspaper article from, say, 2019, reflecting back on the marriage equality movement, that article is a secondary source. It's looking back on a period, rather than speaking from within it. The key to determining if something is a primary or secondary source is how far removed your object is from the topic of study. If it's providing first-hand, direct evidence, it's a primary source. If it's providing second-hand evidence by citing other sources, it's a secondary source.